Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. This is Thursday, June 13th, episode 109. Don Harris alongside me, Matt Roy. Don, how are you today?
Freezing.
It gets colder in here every day. It's fine. You have a blanket on today. That's nice.
I am. I'm coming. I've figured it out. I got my pillow. I've got my blanket. I am prepared.
You're not wearing your pullover, your quarter zip like you usually do, though.
Well, it's summertime. It's 108 with the heat index outside, so you got to dress for outside, and then you come into this place. It's a meat locker.
Everywhere else except for this room that we're in right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to cover the Spurs. We're going to cover Caitlin Clark. We're going to cover the NBA Finals. And alongside, we have a very special guest today.
Yeah.
And she has a lot of titles, so I'm going to run through them really quick. She's doing a lot of things. She is the host of the show Run It Back on FanDuel TV. She's the co-host of Beadle and Decker Monday through Friday on Mad Dog Sports Radio and the co-host of Over the Top podcast with David Rosenberg. She is formerly of ESPN and NBC. She's a Boerne grad, a UTSA grad. She is Michelle Beadle.
Dear
Hello.
Lord.
What is up,
Hello.
Beadle?
You're doing a lot of stuff.
Did you have a blanket and a pillow? Is that what I just heard?
I have
nice.
I am. I'm all warm. Hey, Matt, you forgot the host of the Coyote Clubhouse.
That is my origin story. Yes. I can never
Some
forget.
of us are old enough to remember when Michelle Beadle, before she was a big time national star, she was Kikarillo's intern and the host of the Coyote Clubhouse.
I also forgot to mention that she's a Spurs correspondent and is on their broadcast team right now. So
I tried. You know what? How about me like not being able to be around as many games when Wembanyama gets there? I really did it backwards, didn't I? I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
You know, I got to tell you, my favorite thing that you've ever done was Sports Nation. That's when I don't want to make everyone feel old here, but
here we go. Yep.
It's when I was in high school, and I would watch that with you and Colin all the time. So that's how I became knowing of who Michelle Beadle was back on Sports Nation.
That was probably one of my favorite chapters.
It was
Seriously,
so much
though,
fun.
with you got to tip your cap to Mike Kikarillo. I remember Michelle when she was just starting out. Brian Anderson as well, who's now a big shot play-by-play guy for the networks. Kick really did have a great eye for talent, for young talent, because you guys were basically college kids, trying to find your way, and Kick gave you, an in into this business. We all got it from somewhere. But how about Mike Kikarillo, Michelle Beadle, and Brian Anderson on his coaching tree?
I mean, look here. There's the thing too about Kick. I mean, Brian is a no-brainer, right? Like he sort of knew the path and did it. I was technically an old college dropout at the moment that I met Kick, and so it was one of those lucky, sort of fortuitous moments where I, forever and ever grateful that he even gave me a shot.
And what was the name of the show that you did right after that? That was the tailgate parties thing. With Paul Alexander's group.
Yep.
You guys game.
Yeah, we did like around Texas. We'd go around Texas and games, and
that was a good show.
Why am I drawing
too.
a grant? Like, God, that was crazy.
Game day tailgate thing. Yeah.
Something tailgate or. Wow, this is bad. Maybe my memory's going now.
Don't feel
Maybe
bad.
I need a blanket and a pillow, Don.
There you go.
Don's memory of recent things isn't great, but his memory of older things is fantastic.
Yeah. I relate. I both.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. We do start every episode, Michelle, with, we call it our number game. So this is episode 109. So we do what that number reminds you of. Obviously, we'll do number 9 today. Who is the
jersey
person
number
in sports or the year? You can do 2009. What does the number 9 remind you of when it comes to sports?
Tony Parker. That's my number one.
I mean, that has to
and then I remember Eva
year.
Longoria. Like Eva Longoria had the number 9 tattooed on the back of her neck. Like I'll never forget. That's why you can't do that.
Does she really?
Yeah.
She did. I imagine it's gone now.
Imagine she still has it. Who knows?
So she turned it into something else, probably.
Something else for sure. 9 can be turned into 8 pretty easily, or
Yep.
99.
Or a flower.
So, but that really puts you in a box. You can only date people who are 9 or 99 or 2009, something like that from now on.
Little known fact, our David Chancellor introduced Tony Parker to Eva Longoria in the Spurs locker room after a game one night. She had come to a game and she wanted to meet some of the players, and David saw her in the hallway and grabbed our cameraman and said, hey, we're here with a TV star, Eva Longoria. Who's your favorite player? And she went, Tony Parker. And he goes, you want to meet him? And she said, yeah. So they would go into the locker room when it opened up, and the rest is history.
I don't know if they're
that
sending
is
him.
good trivia.
I don't know if they're sending him thank you cards at this point, but that's a good story.
Well, at first it was all happy, and then it was not so much.
Also, another. Hold on. First of all, where does Tony Parker rank in the list of all-time Spurs? 5?
Okay, so this is an interesting one because it's really good because Tim is no doubt number 1.
Obviously.
David Robinson number 2. George Gervin's number 3. So 4, 5, you can go either way with Tony or Manu. And Tony statistically has the edge, but Manu is a 4 on a lot of people's list just because of the heart and because of the, he was, cooler. And it was easier to deal with. But he was also there was a part of Manu's game because of the way he played that made him more of a favorite. But if you were to go by straight Hall of Fame numbers, Tony would be number 4.
Michelle, do you think 4 or 5? What's Tony?
Like I loved Tony, although I'm seeing all these points, but Manu is, Manu just came, he was older when he came in. He sort of had his entire life before he got to us. I mean, as an NBA family. And honestly, it's funny. Somebody was just having this conversation the other day. They were reminiscing about back in the day, like the Dirk days when everybody described all the Euro players as soft, this, that, and the other. And it's, or international for that matter. And I remember the caveat, the asterisk every single time was, except for Manu Ginobili. Like Manu Ginobili came in here and did not take any guff, if you will, from anybody. So I think I'm going Manu 2 at 4, but that's 4
I go with Manu 2 at 4, but Manu was a 2-time Hall of Famer. Tony was a 6-time Hall of Famer. Tony is the all-time leading Spurs assist leader. He has more career points. Of course, Manu came off the bench. There's a lot of reasons to go with Tony, but you go with Manu because Manu's Manu. I
think that's fair.
Manu's Manu.
Also number 9, if anybody else in Texas, Tony Romo, number 9, the 3rd best.
Tommy Kramer.
I would say the 3rd best Cowboys quarterback of all time. Dak's getting there, but I mean, statistically at least. It's not
Is
like
he going to be there much longer, or what?
It's not like you have a lot of playoff success to compare between the two of them. So
no, not at all.
I also put down, because I'm a Red Sox fan, I put down Ted Williams. I think of him as well. But anyway.
Okay, that's fair.
Ted Williams, the best, one of the best players to never win a ring in the history of baseball. But let's get to some Spurs. Let's get to some Spurs action here. So, Michelle, the Wembanyama of it all has thrown everyone's take about the Spurs offseason into a tizzy, for lack of a better term, just because people are wondering, are they going to compete now? Are they going to speed up the timeline? Who are they going to put around him? All that stuff. When you just look back at this season of the Spurs basketball and of Wembanyama, what was your main takeaway, or what were your main takeaways from the Spurs season as a whole before we get into this offseason?
I think from the All-Star break on, there was just a significant vibe change. And I think watching Wembanyama, a 20-year-old coming in this league with that kind of pub and hype and expectation, I was genuinely resigned to the idea that, okay, he's going to come in, he's going to have some struggles, he's going to have some learning curve, and all of that's fine. And I think he was just so ahead of schedule on everything and shocked so many people with not just sort of what people expected him to be good at, but with the other things. And you could kind of see the progress as the season went on, like the skills that he was picking up and the way he would answer questions and the confidence. I mean, when we get to the end of a season and he's basically telling Rudy Gobert, enjoy your last defensive player of the year award, I was just like, this is going to be one heck of a ride. And so, yeah, I think ahead of schedule is how I would most describe it. Because
when he came in, there was no way he was going to exceed expectations with all that was said. I mean, Woj was going on saying he's the greatest prospect in the history of professional sports. And it was just all this hyperbole around this guy. And yet he did. Yet after the All-Star break, because he was working on his post game, because he was a sponge and wanted to learn, and he just happens to be an amazing human being outside of being a basketball player. He's got an old soul work ethic. Somehow he exceeded those expectations, which I thought would have been impossible going into the season.
I think the way that he exceeded expectations more than anything was how he engendered himself to fans. Like he integrated himself into the Spurs culture, into San Antonio better than almost anybody that I've ever seen after they're drafted, except for maybe LeBron because he was drafted to his hometown team. But
yeah, that doesn't count.
That doesn't count. Exactly. It's not like France drafted Wemby. All right. So,
yeah.
So when you look at this offseason, Michelle, obviously they're connected. The Spurs are connected to almost every free agent that's out there. Trae Young, Lauri Markkanen, Darius Garland, people that are rumored to be wanting to be traded, people that are like basically anything that is possibly being moved this offseason is being linked to the Spurs. Do you think that's solely based on how good Victor was this year or based on actual rumors or things that people are hearing?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, the Trae Young ones, that's got to be, that's almost all season, I feel like. That has been a rumor that's just lingered like a cloud. But the Lauri Markkanen of it all, the idea of bringing in a scorer, it's exciting. What's crazy to me or what I think the hard part of the job that Brian Wright and company's got to do is you don't want to go too fast and you don't want to bring in too much of a seasoned veteran that you don't get to grow the team together. But at the same time, what might have been a more slowed down, slower paced building process, I have to believe that they're going to speed that up a little bit because of how ready Wemby looks. And you don't want, I'm not saying you're going to waste the years. The kid's 20. All things going well, he's got a good 10, 12, 13 years if he wants to keep playing. And hopefully they're all in Spurs. But yeah, I think it's funny to go from San Antonio where for years now, it's sort of been a bit of a drought and maybe not a destination. And all of a sudden players around the league have to take a real long look at playing in San Antonio, because if you attach yourself to Wembanyama early on and you can ride that journey, like who knows, sky's the limit. So I'm excited to see which veterans out there all of a sudden have opened their minds to possibly, move into South Texas.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be a great summer for that veteran group. I mean, you hear Darius Garland and names like that, but I think they've got I think you're right on in that it's somewhere in between. It's not, going where, the ESPN talking heads this summer are talking about Victor Wembanyama wants to win now, and so they have to speed this up and they have to make these moves this offseason. I don't think they're going to do that. They have all those picks from Atlanta, unprotected first rounders coming from Atlanta next year and in 27. You do not want to sacrifice those picks because you might get a really, really good player there. And so I don't think they trade those picks. But I do think they're looking to see who's going to be available next summer. Jason Tatum's gonna become a free agent. There's going to be bigger names than Darius Garland. And so while I do think they might make a move with their 4 and 8th pick this year, they might pick up a Tyus Jones, or they might pick up a good veteran scorer here or there, or a big guy. I don't think they leverage at everything and put together that 5 number ones, Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell for Kevin Durant or whatever it is.
Yeah,
no,
but
they're not going to do that.
Definitely not Kevin, but maybe someone else. But where I stand with it is like you have all these assets. You can't use all of these picks that you have. So you need to make some moves at some point. Boston had the same thing a little while ago when they traded Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and everybody, and they got this treasure trove of picks, and Danny Ainge just sat on them. And he sat on him, and now they're finally coming home to roost. And Danny Ainge is now doing the same thing in Utah, where he has all these picks, and he doesn't do anything with them. And he's trying to acquire more picks because of Lauri Markkanen. And it's like, at some point, you can't have more than 15 players on your roster, so you have to use some of these picks to acquire other veterans that'll help your team. Maybe you don't acquire Jason Tatum this offseason or one of the superstars and use all your picks, but maybe you do acquire a B-list guy, Darius Garland, a Lauri Markkanen, a B-list guy that'll help you grow now, which I think is what both of you guys are saying.
It also depends on how well you like 4 and 8. Like
true.
Who's there? Like, do they get the 2 guys they really want, or do those 2 guys go at number 2 and number 3, and they really don't love 4 and 8? But if you love 4 and 8 and you think you have good players, then the Malachi Branhams of the world, the Blake Westleys of the world, kind of fall off. You don't renew those guys when it comes time to extend them, and you just go with the young guy, because you may have a guy at 4-8 this year that ends up being better than Devin Vassell. That might be your second best player. I mean, I don't know.
Take. I like it. This draft is weird. I mean, there's just so many unknowns and hopes and dreams. But in my years, I've learned to sort of trust them. In the talent scouting pool, and so I continue to just ride that trust wave. And maybe there's someone out there we have no idea about that will, the next Tony Parker that will just be like, who's this? Next thing you know, he's in the Hall of Fame. That's best case scenario.
That's what you hope for, and it happens from time to time. But they've missed as well. I mean, they got Vassell 1 pick after Halliburton. They could have had Halliburton. They got Sohan 3 picks before. They could have had Halliburton 1 pick before Halliburton. They got Sohan when they could have had the kid that's at Oklahoma City, Jalen Williams, right?
Mm-hmm. Williams.
So they missed on that too. Now, you're not gonna always hit on Tony Parker and Monte Ginobili. I don't think those guys are misses, but Halliburton's better than Vassell, and Jalen Williams is better than Sohan. So you have to hit. You have to hit when you get these chances. They missed on Primo, although nobody saw that coming.
That's fair.
And so
he had a lot of other things going on.
It's like that is fair.
I mean, if he would have panned out, he was on track to. They'd have their point guard of the future. So
he was a dingling.
You could really hit it big with 4.
Pun received.
Anyway, let's get. I can't help myself. Sorry.
Still the greatest defense though of all time.
I just to this day I'm just like, what now? What happened? Okay, fair enough.
All right, let's move off of that quickly. Let's go to the NBA Finals.
Oh man.
Yeah, Celtics lead the Mavs 3-0 now after. I just thought it was a weird game last night. The Mavs come out on fire. Kyrie is doing everything he can, but for some reason, Kyrie and Luka just lost all trust in anybody that wasn't each other, and decided not to hit open guys outside. PJ Washington was wide open for half the game, and they chose not to get him involved until the fourth quarter. But Michelle? Is this how the finals is going? Like, is this how you thought the finals were going to go, or did you think this was going to be a closer series?
No, I definitely thought it would be a bit of a closer series, because to me, the West was always the harder conference, and they just had, I thought, steeper competition. Boston sort of lucked out a little bit on their path with the injuries that sort of rattled the Eastern Conference. Not to take away from them. They are obviously a ridiculously dominant team, but I'm disappointed in how Dallas has looked. Just game one was ridiculous. And the fact that Kyrie couldn't get it together in Boston for either one of those games, then he gets it together last night and Luka loses his mind. And the thing that bums me out about Luka is he is obviously one of the best players in this league. And if he doesn't figure out how to manage his temper and his outrage every single time anything is called or not called, it's going to ruin what is a amazing basketball career. And I don't want to have to think about Luka 5-10 years from now, and all I think about is this kind of stuff. So I don't know that he has enough time before game 4 to change his entire personality. But my goodness, sir, like you got to be smarter. I mean, you let his team down so bad last night when they actually really had a shot to win that game. It was so disappointing.
And every time he complains, he leaves them in a 4-on-5 situation. Like he's just leaving them behind
all the time. And even when they're a 5-on-5, he doesn't play defense. And the thing that bothers you the most about him is that this has been going on for years. I mean, his rookie year, okay, the guy's got to stop complaining about the officials. This next year, the guy's got to stop complaining about the officials. His coaches have told him. His teammates have told him. The management of the Mavericks has told him. And then he's sitting on the floor last night screaming at the bench like a 2-year-old saying, you better challenge that call, which they do.
And it shows
clearly a foul. And
Clearly.
It's just a temper tantrum. It's like, it's a shame because, like you said, he's one of the top 3 players in the world. And at least from an MVP perspective, the triple-doubles that he puts out, he's amazing. Yeah. And yet he's not a winner because he acts like that.
I don't think you can say he's not a winner. His team's in the finals because in large part to him.
Winners win championships. Hey, Michelle, we need to educate Matthew here. we don't hang division championship banners at the AT&T Center.
I'm not saying that he's not. I'm not saying he's a winner in the respect that like his team has succeeded.
No, you don't.
They haven't won the ultimate prize, obviously,
and they may never because of that.
That's all that matters.
I think that's the problem. I think he has the potential to get to this point, and then when you see him act like that on the biggest stage, and when in the biggest moment of his career so far in the NBA, and you can't get it together, that is to put yourself in a position with 5 fouls to still go hunting for calls. It's just dumb, truly dumb. And then you're getting reports that, coaching staff, everybody's begged and pleaded with him. And I understand, it's a reactionary behavior. It's like trying to tell me to tone down my road rage. Okay, well, I try, but it's not always doable. And he's got to figure it out. I don't know what kind of sports psychologist they have on hand, something, but he has to figure it out.
And what's crazy is that he's playing the exact team that can do that to you, right? Because Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, they've actually put Holiday, Brown, Tatum, Horford, the 26 kid last night. What's his name?
Tillman.
They put like
3
six
for no reason. How did that
They
happen?
put 6 different guys
I don't know how that happened.
guarding Luka, and Holiday is absolutely driving both Kyrie and Luka absolutely insane. And so you have this perfect storm because Luka's going to melt down no matter who's guarding him, and it just so happens to be the greatest on-ball defender maybe in the last decade. And so it's creating so much frustration for them.
Drew Holiday would be my MVP if I had a vote. I would vote for Drew Holiday as the Finals MVP. I would. Jaylen
over Jaylen.
Jaylen Brown's going to win.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown's going
to
win.
I think he's like minus 340 last time I checked. Like he's going to win unless Jason Tatum pulls them out of the depths of a loss in Game 4. But
that ain't happening.
No, I don't think so either. But to me, if I was a Mavs fan, the part that would be so infuriating to me last night, but take away the first 3 quarters when they wouldn't pass PJ Washington the ball. In the fourth quarter, I actually texted a friend of mine who turned the game off. He's a Mavs fan. He turned the game off when they were down 21 and they started coming back.
Fair.
And I texted him. I was like, you can't turn it back on. And so I'm texting him updates.
Superstitious.
I'm
That's
texting,
pretty good, though.
and he's following along on the ESPN app. And I texted him. I was like, this is actually pretty entertaining because Luka is putting in hustle. Luka is trying. There's bodies flying around the floor. Like I remember when the ball, it was a Mavs possession. It got tossed into the backcourt, and Luka's putting his body on the line to go after a loose ball. And I'm like, this is not the Luka I've seen. This is awesome. And then a minute later, he gets 2 stupid fouls and is yelling like a 2-year-old. Like that's what would be the most infuriating part to me is you're down by 3 with 4.5 minutes left, and you are earning points with everybody. You are about to pull off one of the greatest comebacks against a really good team, and you just throw it away. I just don't get it.
Yeah. And what you do is you alienate your own fans, because your fans will die for you. They will go to the mat against the referees. But here you go. Now you got Mavericks fans all day today upset with Luka saying we're never going to win unless he changes it. So he's not only alienated, the media. By the way, Michelle, what'd you think of Windhorst's torching of Luka?
You know what I love? First of all, I love Wendy, and he is not like that. Network's got a lot of people that say outlandish things for clicks. We're all very aware and familiar, but he's not that guy. So for him to come out there with just a scathing take on, if he wants to go in the winner's tunnel ever, I was blown away, and I agreed with every word he said. And it was also just the source, the messenger, I think is what made the message so poignant because Wendy doesn't usually do that.
Hey, I wanted to get your insight on this too, because you have if you feel comfortable talking about it, but Shams breaking the JJ story and then Woj coming in with Hurley that never
Dan
happened.
Hurley, yeah.
There's this big conspiracy theory that Woj just won't get beat on a story, and so that he and Hurley conspired to be a candidate just to make Shams look like he got it wrong. And now, any insight on that?
I mean, look, I work with Shams. In the morning on FanDuel, and it's so funny, these two guys. And I used to work with Woj, and they're so intense, and it's just they're just different, right? They're wired differently than most of us. But yeah, there's no love lost. That's no secret between the two of them. And Shams stands by his reporting that 2 weeks ago it was all Borrego and it was all JJ Redick, and that is all they were looking at. So I have to lean towards Shams because the Dan Hurley of it all seemed to be completely out of nowhere. It certainly resulted in a better deal for him at UConn that I honestly don't believe he ever intended to leave in the first place. And Woj does have, the optics aren't great. He has a close relationship with the entire Hurley family. So
True that.
Did he write a book on the Hurleys?
Yeah.
A whole book. And by the way, it's funny because it's always behind him when he does his hits. But yeah, the drama behind the scenes it's insane to me. It's all about scoops, guys. All about the scoop.
Michelle, I want to ask you before we get out of here. I want to move on to the Caitlin Clark stuff because I saw something you posted. I think it was earlier this week about Angel Reese and it being more resentment instead of jealousy. And I wanted to ask you about that because obviously Caitlin Clark is tearing up the sports media landscape unintentionally, like it's through no fault of her own, but nobody can stop. Everybody has to talk about her at all times. And now with her not making the Olympic team, whether that's fair or unfair, merit-based or unmerit-based, we're not going to get into that, but it does seem like there's a target on her back through either veterans or other rookies that she's dealing with. So what is your take on the whole Caitlin Clark situation?
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. Here's what's weird to me about it, right? Men have also had jealousies towards each other, and maybe it hasn't been so demonstrative the way we've sort of seen this play out. I think the resentment, why I like that word better than jealousy, is because jealousy to me sort of connotes that I look at someone who has stuff I don't have, but I want, and so I'm jealous. And resentment, I think they look at her like they're just as good. I mean, Angel Reese looks at Caitlin Clark and thinks I'm just as good as her, but then not getting the kind of coverage. So there's a resentment involved. And look, whether she should have been on the Olympic team or not, to me, it didn't matter. They made their decision. That was the team they wanted. It wouldn't be shocking if, a year from now, we find out that 6 players on the Olympic team were like, we'd rather not have her here. Michael Jordan did it. I don't see why they couldn't do it. And so, look, what I love the most about it, is that it's given an opportunity for people in our business to really show their heinies because, my goodness, the things that have been said out loud have been outlandish and ridiculous. But more importantly, she has handled it in a way like, she answers all the questions correctly. Like you can just almost tell that she just doesn't want to do it this way. Like, just stop and let her play basketball. And I think eventually things will die down, but I knew this was going to be a big deal. I didn't think it would take on a life of its own. I didn't think we were getting think pieces from the likes of Bill Maher when Caitlin Clark went into the WNBA. And this is where we are. So it's been crazy.
I think it sucks for her because, she didn't ask for this. She didn't ask for the hate from the rest of her league. She didn't ask for the media coverage. She just wants to go out and play basketball, yet she's handling everything beautifully, like you said. And then she comes out the other night and scores 10, and people are like, oh, great response. It's like, what are you talking about, man? Like, how would you go and play after all this crap?
But you know what? I mean, it's a win because, as Cyber Bob would say, they're talking about the WNBA.
Yeah, we are.
Bill Maher is talking about the WNBA. We're talking about the WNBA. Everybody's talking about the WNBA. It's on nightly news that she didn't make the Olympic team. When do we talk about the WNBA?
But are we actually talking about the WNBA? Or are we talking about one person?
Yes, it's free publicity. Red McCombs used to say, just whether you rip me or whether you praise me, just make sure you spell my name right.
Well said. No, you know what? And I do think it's bringing, look, I full disclosure, I never watched the WNBA. I'm a horrible feminist in that regard, as Bill Burr would say. But because of this, I've sort of started to walk over into that pool and started following different teams and different players. And I'm like, look, if there are several people like me that have kind of taken that journey because Caitlin Clark pushed us there, then yeah, I'm with Don. Like, we are talking about it, and eventually the basketball will speak for itself because there are fun teams to watch in that league, and I think people just have to maybe start watching a little bit more rather than reacting.
Yeah, and I think all of us, even you guys work at FanDuel TV. You probably have the scores and everything on the ticker, the odds of all the games. And that wasn't even a focus. Like, I would be willing to bet, pun intended, that FanDuel has placed and taken more handle and more number of tickets this year than they have in any other year the WNBA.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Has to be. Yeah, 100%.
Michelle, before we let you go, Bob, do you have any viewer questions or anything like that?
We just have one question from Dez.
Des, it's one of our editors here.
What is Michelle's most memorable Spurs moment?
Most lovable Spurs moment.
Most memorable.
Memorable. Sorry, they said lovable.
Most memorable I mean, I'm not going to do a Sean Elliott one. That's what he wants. Can't give him that. God, that's a good one. You know, it's weird because if I just think out loud, actually, you know what? It was the year the Spurs won. I believe it was a shortened year, and Steve Kerr was here, and Andrew Gaze, and those guys. And I just remember it was my intern year. Daniel Ashcraft, like they're all still there. It's amazing, and just to be around for something like that. Obviously, at that point in my life, I'd never been around anything, any championship, any celebration of that level, and to watch players that you love to watch play sort of let their hair down and celebrate it's probably my favorite memory. To be having tears of happiness. I don't know what's better than that.
Yeah, the 99, the first one. It was. Yeah, I'm with you. 100. It was unbelievable.
It's chaos.
The car flags and the people going downtown to honk their horns, and the river parade and that first river rally with Avery Johnson introducing each guy. It was unbelievable.
I remember it fondly when I was 4 years old. Oh, wait, no,
shut up.
Collective eye roll from the other 4 people in this room. Michelle, before you get out of here, do you want to tell us about 1, Run It Back, 2, Beadle and Decker, 3, Over the Top, and anything else you're working on?
Oh, God. Yeah, if you're bored, just check out any one of the 9 things I'm doing. I talk too much daily. That's all I can say. It's too much talking. I will stop.
Please don't. You're fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle. We will have you on anytime. I appreciate your time and candor.
Hey, Beadle, truly,
Yeah.
Congratulations on all the success. I mean, we knew you were a star when you were 19 or whatever you were. So
shoot, I got a late start.
It's been fun to watch. It's been fun to watch from afar. Your superstardom. Very proud of you.
I'm proud that I now know you have a blanket and a pillow, and I'll never forget this, Don. And I cannot wait to see you again. I can't. I'll never ever forget this moment.
If you only knew how cold it was in here.
Yeah, honestly,
I wish I had that.
Well, thank you so much, Beadle. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's really, really good. Very talented.
Absolutely. I did not know until I started doing research of just how deep the connections went here in San Antonio. I really didn't.
Yeah, Bernie Greyhound. UTSA Roadrunner.
Some more Bernie news coming out this week, too. You want to give a quick shout out to Elizabeth Leachman?
The Bernie champion sophomore in high school has qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials in the 5,000 meters. So they're going to have 30 people run in Eugene, Oregon at the Olympic trials in this race. 26 are professionals, 3 are college, and 1 10th grader. It's just an amazing feat for this young lady who has the national record at 15:25. The minimum qualifying standard is a 15:40. She's run 15:25. She's not going to go to the Olympics. She's not going to be one of the 3 unless she has the day of her life, because there's a lot of girls that have run 15:10, probably 15 of them. So, but to be included in this field
as a 10th grader
is historic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bob, anything before we get out of here?
That's good.
All right. Well, thank you so much to Michelle Beadle for joining us. Like she said, you can find her almost anywhere right now because she's doing a whole bunch of things, just juggling one thing after another. But thank you so much to her. We will try and have her on a little bit later next season. Remember, download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. I should have said that at the beginning, like Bob reminded me to, but whatever. Here we are. We'll see you right back here on Monday. We'll see you then. He's packing up, man. He's getting out of here. We'll see you on Monday.